Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Ji ayanu bakhaira gale ni hao jure shume washmale ohai gonzaimes guten morgen. Hola, bonjour, privet, kaifa hal? Hale shuma chatore, ahlan wa sahlan, marhaba. Buda mucho gracias, Fabi Abdul kare aaya. Hoş geldin Nayo Saya Khuya Morachi Batochi Haljot Kalimera Khairutan. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning alongside my wonderful colleague who happens to be Miss Eesha Rehan. I happen to be Shahzad Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is ready to kickstart their day with us. But first things first, hello Eesha, assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam, Shahzad. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and I feel very, very well today because of the pleasant weather. However, because
it's not really that pleasant inside the studios.
It is not, since it is a little hot. However, you know, since the weather has been pleasant throughout today, we still need to be wary of disruptive weather patterns, which is why the Pakistan Meteorological Department has predicted a widespread of monsoon spells across various parts of the country. Starting from tomorrow, the Met Office warns of potential flash floods, urban flooding and landslides, as well as other rain-related hazards. According to the Met Office, moist currents from the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal have been penetrating upper and central parts of Pakistan and may intensify in the coming days.
Exactly, and certainly everybody needs to be advised on the pre-monsoon rains as well. And please make sure that you take all the precaution measures in terms that you've decided to travel. But I do believe that on our topmost priority as of now today is Israel and Iran. And to speak about what just happened last night is that earlier Iran launched 6 missiles towards American military airbase Al-Udeid in Qatar and retaliation for recent US strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps officially announced the operation named Annunciation of Victory. The Iranian Supreme National Security Council emphasized that the missile strike deliberately avoided residential areas in Qatar. The council also reassured that the operation posed no threat to Qatar or its people, underscoring Iran's commitment to maintaining strong and historic relations with the country. The incidents raises tensions in the region as uncertainty lingers over whether this attack will provoke further retaliation or escalate into border conflict. To speak about it, ladies and gentlemen, we're lucky that we have been joined by General Retired ZAHID Mahmood Sahab as well. Sir, assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you feeling today?
Good morning, Shahzad and Eesha. I'm pretty good. But thank you very much. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Obviously, you know, I have actually kind of given away what actually happened last night. But, you know, I think following that was the US President on X. Trump calls for peace and stability in the region and says that there will be ceasefire between Iran and Israel. But sir, now that's not what my question is today, and I'm not going to build up on that. You know, what I'm going to build up is, you know, for you to be a member of one of the most prestigious armed forces and have served for the longest period of time, why is it that US and Israel is always after the regime change?
Shahzad, thank you very much. You know, there are a few things which practically they do, and there are a few diplomatic, political pressures and coercion tactics, you know. So they keep showing you the bigger threat. They keep threatening you with the big one which is coming behind, you know. So this is a regime change, a change of faces. This has always been a long-term policy of United States and their collaborators. They have had few. I always call them those futile efforts while changing the regime, because that regime change couldn't bring stability to those countries. Look at the condition of, you know, Iraq. We can see what is the condition of Afghanistan. These are the two recent examples. So our youth is very much, you know, they exactly know what all has happened in past. So the regime change has never brought stability in the region. And this is kind of a huge threat, but in Iranian context, probably they underestimated, as rather, I mean, this misadventure in Iran. They underestimated the Iranian nation. You know, they have a very rich history of 5,000 years, so they miscalculated, and but probably part of a strategy that they will continue coercing and intimidating with this larger threat. But understanding the revolutionary ideological system of functioning, who was to replace, you know, the present supreme leader? Someone from the IRG, no one else. You need to have boots on ground to, you know, which Americans will never dare now doing this in any part of the world after this Afghanistan debacle. So these are a few things we can discuss little more on it on specifics as well if you wish to.
Exactly. And sir, in addition to this, obviously, where you spoke about destabilization, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation has condemned the destabilization policies of Israel in the Middle East. Not just that, I would want to bring your attention to where US President Donald J. Trump responds to Iran's missile strikes, Al-Udeid Air Base in Qatar, calling it a weak retaliation for recent US strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. He says no casualties are reported. Obviously, you know, the officials were reported in advance by Iran that, you know, this is something that we are going to do. Now, the problem arises where Iran says that, okay, if Israel is going to stop, we're going to stop then. You know, so how do you think that they will probably find a middle ground where whatever Trump's trying to achieve over here will be achieved? Because now the problem is that Iran says, okay, if Israel stops, we stop. But then, you know, if Israel does not stop, Iran will not stop. If Iran stops and Israel does not stop, so there's lack of confidence in between the two countries now.
So this was probably before this execution and this framework which they have established for the ceasefire. Now they have established this framework that Iran has already, you know, they have ceased their activities, and after 12 hours, Israel is going to cease their activities. And there have been serious attacks before this seizure of hostilities. So this is the framework which is a mutually agreed, and this happens. This happens. There is always a, there are few weapons, there are few technicalities involved in this, in which you sometimes create a gap, But of course, the larger thing is that agreeing to what all is being done, agreeing to the ceasefire, and initially the ceasefire, and then the termination of all the hostilities. So this has been agreed. Largely, a good thing has happened. So these are technical things. Secondly, it is. I can give you a raw example. It is just like the cooling period after if a building is set on a fire, and after that extinction of fire, there is some cooling period which is required. So in the war also, it's a very hot business, Shahzad. It is a serious business, and you need to have little bit of the cooling period.
Exactly. And sir, in addition to this, one more thing which I would want to kind of ask you over here is that how do you think that Pakistan has done on the diplomatic front? Because Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif Sahab actually held separate telephone conversations with Ambassador Al-Mubarak Ali Eesha Al-Khatar of the State of Qatar and Ambassador Nawaf bin Saeed Al-Maliki of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in light of the missile attacks on a US military base in Qatar by Iran. And not just that, I think in addition to this, I would want you to kind of reiterate how probably we have seen in the Pahalgam false flag attack, first Pakistan was targeted. Now we have seen within this region, Iran was targeted as well. Is there any other controversy which comes to your mind thinking of what's happening in the region?
Look, Shahzad, you and Eesha are very lucky that in this age you have seen Pakistan standing at the right side of the history. It took us a lot of time to see this country standing at the right side of the history. But anyways, I think Pakistan has played their card tremendously well. Alhamdulillah, all thanks and to Allah Almighty that who gave our political military leadership this kind of a wisdom. And the Pakistani state has played their cards. Pakistan is a factor of stability in this region. Pakistan is being found as a stabilizer. You are hearing the slogans of Tashakkur Pakistan in the Iranian parliament. You are hearing the voices of I love Pakistan, I love Pakistanis in the White House. China, you have a relationship with China, you have good relationship with Russia. And Pakistan has emerged as a responsible state in the region and a factor of stabilization. And there are spoilers in this region also who are, they must be licking their wounds. That those are the factors of instability. This saffronized India I'm talking about. So Pakistan is standing at the right side of the history. Now, there are many lessons for our Iranian brothers to learn. I wish they keep what all this nation always keep what all has happened to them in this in the past as well. And I would urge them to remember who were their friends, who supported them, and who were the spoilers. And where was the connection that the Israelis were able to, reach to the bedrooms of their military leadership. Even they were shifting their rooms every night, but they had the precise, information about their leaders. And this is the inside job as well, and the job of those who were misusing their land. I'm straight away I'm hinting at the RAW and collaboration between RAW and Mossad. So there was a strong collaboration, and Indian agents were there on ground who were sporting, and things are coming up. Recently they have captured a factory. They have unearthed the drone factory, which was right there in Iran, and there are Indian connections found there. But anyways, let's not be very specific to India. Iran has to learn through a hard way. And then there are many other lessons, military lessons also for the Iran, for the future conflicts. But anyway, I think we are extremely lucky. We should be thanking to Allah Almighty that this ceasefire has taken place. Otherwise, the situation, how quickly it engulfed other countries also. This fire engulfed the other countries. And that's why we always say that if there is a war in this region, the whole region will be impacted. And that's what all has happened. It took just 4-6 missiles to get all the countries involved. And this was a strategic finesse. We will talk about it little later, rather more off the record and less on the record. It was an extremely strategic finesse that has been seen from Iran coming up. So they said that if it is kind of in this tone that we can say that Iran must have said that if I am going down, we all will go down. So we need to have a collaborated and collective response. But hats off to Saudi Arabia and especially to Qatar. Qatar has played a very important role, and selection of Al-Adid in Qatar was another strategic move, considering the Qatari's relationship with UAE and Saudi Arabia. So if this thing is happening inside Qatar, maybe Saudi Arabia and UAE might not respond that harshly against Iran. But the statement which has come from Saudi Arabia, that was very harsh. That reflects that Saudi Arabia is now, is trying to play a lead role in this region, and this was a positive role. We must find out
Wonderfully put.
That was explained.
Thank you so much.
All of this was explained very, very well, Major General Zahid Mahmood, and thank you so much for taking our time and helping us unfold this conversation and shedding practical light upon the situation. And for all of our audiences watching, we will be back after a short break, so stay tuned to find out how this regional instability is causing a ripple effect in our economy. Good morning.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. You tuned into PT World, watching World this morning. Earlier, we were in conversation with General Retired Zaid Mahmood Saab, and he says, obviously, if one of the countries within this region is going to be struck with war, certainly the entire region will be unstable. And it's true. Now, imagine that I'm going to connect it where the International Monetary Fund has warned that US airstrikes on Iran could amplify global economic uncertainty. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said that the fund is closely monitoring the situation in the Middle East, particularly the impact of the conflict on oil and gas prices and supply routes. Georgieva said that the IMF is looking at this as another source of uncertainty in what has been a highly uncertain environment. Adds that the institution is watching for two things. One, how would that impact risk primarily for oil and gas? And in addition to this, I think I would want to kind of move on towards oil and gas as well, how it will take the hit as well, where 3 empty oil and chemical tankers have diverted away from the Strait of Hormuz and changed course. Marine traffic ship tracking data shows in growing uncertainty over whether Iran will take reprisal action in the vital waterway after USA strikes on Tehran's nuclear facilities. And to speak about it, obviously on Monday we did see how the KSE is actually plummeted as well to 3,900 points. Thankfully for the ceasefire which has been announced just last night, we do see a bullish trend where we are at 4,400 points as well. We're very lucky that we've been joined by one of the most amazing guests that you could actually get ever to speak about economy, micro or macro as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky we've been joined by Mr. FAHEEM SARDAR. Hello sir, assalamu alaikum, good morning. How are you feeling today?
I'm well and I'm enjoying the humidity just like you.
I think everybody does as well. But what we're not enjoying is the KSC plummeting on Monday and then coming back and showing a bullish trend as well. First of all, sir, I think for our audiences to kind of understand,
Sure.
how does it impact the economy of a neighboring country where there is conflict? Probably let's speak about Iran as well. And then obviously the oil routes, you know, whatever, because the GPSs were off even just yesterday, that I was in conversation of the vessels and they could reach on time, and how the prices could, just the fare prices go from $9,000 to $12,000 as well. How does it all kind of impact the neighboring country?
Thank you for having me. When you look at an economy, you have to first identify, is it a normal economy or is it a war economy?
Okay.
So war economies need war for them to work. And even those war economies have a limit beyond which they cannot work. What we have to be very clear about is that there are only a few on earth that are war economies. The US is a war economy. Israel is partially a war economy. Iran's economy is not a war economy.
Yep.
Pakistan's economy is slowly becoming a war economy.
Okay.
Slowly.
That's a very different statement.
Yeah, when you look at it, because we've indigenized a lot of the production, you have to indigenize a lot of the things. So when you look at a conflict in, let's say, Iran, now Iran is an oil producer, around about 3.3 million barrels per day. Iran is a part of OPEC. Iran has been able to survive all these sanctions because of its oil.
Yeah.
Having said that, when you look at any kind of conflict in any region, you cannot have a normal economic situation if there's some kind of a disturbance. This is beyond serious, what was happening between Israel and Iran, and this could have become a nuclear
True. It could have gone
war,
war.
because let's be very frank, Iran was not alone. Russia was with Iran, China was with Iran, Pakistan was with Iran, but Iran was at the forefront. Any kind of conflict does not help you. I mean, if you notice yesterday, when Iran fired missiles at the US airbase in Qatar, did you see the images in the mall?
True.
All of a sudden, all economic activity stopped and everyone ran. So this is the problem within a normal economy. If it's not a war economy, you cannot allow any kind of disturbance. And in 2020, I coined the term violence in economic areas. This is something Pakistan has been suffering from. Now, Pakistan knows exactly what this disturbance does, and we have to be very clear that any kind of disturbance, if it is allowed, it's going to disrupt your economy. It's not going to allow you to work.
Exactly.
That was very well put together. And another important fact of these geopolitical tremors are the oil prices, and they surged up to 2.8% over the past few days. So how is this going to have a potential impact on Pakistan, who is very oil dependent? Is it going to impact inflation, the currency? Please enlighten us.
In early May, because we import from OPEC, primarily from Saudi. So when you look at the OPEC basket price, in early May, the price was around about $59.74 per barrel. In 1 month, it had shot up $20. So that's almost like 40% it had increased. So Pakistan has to face this increased price of crude oil. Now, some people, recently, which is I think 2 days ago, oil prices started to fall in the international markets. Now that is very strange, because the Strait of Hormuz was about to be shut down. But that means, it's very simple, someone increased oil supplies. Most probably one of the OPEC countries.
Somebody took opportunity.
Yeah. And America wanted to make sure that the prices do not rise, to keep it low. But when we talk about oil is a basic input commodity, and if the price of oil is not controlled, you are basically exposing yourself to international inflation. There is an alternative to oil which I suggested to the government when I was with the government. You don't need to pump oil, you can make oil. There's a chemical process through which you can do that. That's a separate discussion.
Exactly. And so very quickly, which is why, since we were talking about oil and how the international supplies, speaking about trade and supply chains, I think, because let's break it down for people so that they have a better understanding of whether what is having an impact. Do you think that our country is actually dependent on imports exports through the watering countries, number one? Or do you think our key transport routes may it be land, sea, air disrupted or at risk of disruption? Because we do see how PIA has actually is not operating any flights as of now, as of today as well. So do you think that, you know, all of this will actually add on to the burden of whatever is going on?
Yes, yes, and a resounding yes. Now, it's a very, your question is very simple, but the answer is very complex. Pakistan is in an active theater, and next to Pakistan, we have now 2 active theaters. So this is something that we cannot allow for ourselves, because we do not need more disturbance in our economy. Most of our PIA flights, profitable PIA flights, were with the Gulf. As we know right now, if you look at the radar trackers, Iran, Iraq, Jordan, UAE, all flights have been rerouted or cancelled. So our relationship with the region is quite intense, and if there is something going on in the region, you will not have traffic and you will not have economic activity. And we import around about 400,000 barrels of oil per day. So and that comes from the Gulf, from Saudi. So we need to understand that we cannot allow disturbance in our region.
Exactly, which is why the government took an initiative where they said that we really need a 20-day oil reserve as well, and it was done well in time. Very quickly, sir, because obviously, unfortunately, we have seen that there have been conflicts within this region as well, going back to, I think, in the entire 19th century, and even now. I don't know whether we're too late for this or whether we're too early for this. I think for our generation, we're still in confusion. But do you think in days to come, there'll be a lot of migration and refugees? Pakistan has been hosting a lot of refugees anyways. Do you think that that will have its toll, number one? And number two, where do you think that the businessmen or the business community need to invest as of now, given the conditions within the continent?
Coming to migration, I don't think migration will be allowed.
Okay.
It's not sustainable for Pakistan, at least. As we can see, we have reverse migrated the Afghans, and we did a very harsh... We had to do it. We had to do it. But when it comes to conflict in Iran or some other countries, Pakistan cannot just open its borders. I'm being specific to Pakistan. Secondly, when we talk about economic stability, I have to bring in economic stability here. When you talk about economic stability, there are certain pillars of stability, and one of them is an input cost. One is activity, one is basic, a sense of peace. Right now, to be a warmonger, that's good, because you're making a lot of money. You're selling a lot of missiles, you're selling a lot of bullets, you're selling a lot of ships and whatever. But that's just for a few. For a country, you cannot allow this to happen. Pakistan needs to ensure that regional peace, one way or another, I cannot stress this enough, has to be done, and we have to get off this import of oil. I've given a solution. There is a solution. We cannot allow ourselves to be dependent on that. And I'll just conclude with my last point. The largest import bill of Pakistan is POL. Petroleum, oil and lubricants, which is $20 billion.
Oh my God.
That's 40% of our import bill. So we cannot allow ourselves to be exposed to this.
Exactly. Thank you so much, sir, for saying that. And just before we got started with this, very segment, FAHEEM Sardar off the record did mention that he's bought a lot of shares. So I think it's probably the right time for everybody to invest in shares as well. But thank you so much, FAHEEM sir, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. And for anybody and everybody who wants to get in touch, please get in touch and learn, which shares you need to invest in. I think saying it out publicly will be a lot of favorism from our end. So thank you so much, sir, for being with us. Lovely to have you.
And I think another important day that we need to discuss is that how women have been at the forefront of diplomatic peace and stability. So the International Day of Women in Diplomacy is being celebrated today due to the women in diplomacy and highlighting the challenges that prevent equal participation of women at all levels of decision making. The day was proclaimed by the UN General Assembly on June 20th, 2022. The purpose of this day is to provide an opportunity to promote full and equal participation of women at all levels of diplomacy through education and awareness of rising activities.
I think that's wonderful as well, and women have certainly played a crucial and a pivotal role in diplomacy as well. But now moving on towards sports, where Pakistan qualified for the final of Asian Men's Volleyball Nations Cup in Bahrain. In the first semi-final, Pakistan upset defending champion Qatar by 3-0. Pakistan secured a final berth with a sideline of 25-22 And 25-21, Usman Faryad Ali, Murad Jahan, Murad Khan and Fahad Raza performed brilliantly for Pakistan. Congratulations to volleyball team of Pakistan as well. But in addition to this, we were obviously, keeping an eye out for Shandur Polo Festival, which has actually concluded in Chitral. The three-day Shandur Polo Festival held at the world's highest polo ground at 12,000 feet had ended with an exciting final match between Gilgit and Chitral teams. Chitral edged out Gilgit with a close score of 8-7. The festival, organized in collaboration with the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Gilgit-Baltistan governments, Pakistan Army and Frontier Corps, featured spectacular closing events. Not just that, I think I would want to move on to squash as well, where, ladies and gentlemen, whenever we speak about the second Asian double squash chips, Pakistan secured victories against Korea and Philippines. Wow, I think we have been doing great recently. The second Asian Double Squash Championship 2025 has officially begun in Malaysia, featuring 15 doubles teams from across Asia. Pakistan's Noor Zaman and Asir Iqbal continued their winning streak in the championship. Just very quickly, because we do know that there are a lot of people who actually love football, FIFA Club World Cup 2025, Manchester City crushed Al Ain 6-0 to reach pre-quarters. Manchester City, Real Madrid and Juventus all claimed dominant victories in their group stage matches across the United States at the FIFA Club World Cup. And yes, what a proud moment that the football which is being used in the FIFA Club World Cup is actually being produced by Pakistan Forward Sports.
And not just this, Pakistani footballers will be featuring in the AFC Futsal Asian Cup qualifiers in Malaysia for the very first time. Pakistan will be among the 32 nations taking part in the tournament, which will commence with a draw on June 26 at the AFC House in Kuala Lumpur. The teams will be split into 8 groups for the qualifiers to be conducted in a centralized league form from September 20th to 24th.
I think that's wonderful. Pakistan doing wonderfully well on the sports fronts as well. But if we are to speak about this region, unfortunately, we've been conflict struck as well. We do know as Pakistanis, we're battle hardened. Our armed forces is battle hardened as well. But there's one more problem which is arising, and we could actually face the brunt of it. And it's because of the fact that Asia, ladies and gentlemen, is currently warming nearly twice as the global average, fueling more extreme weather and wreaking a heavy toll on the region's economies, ecosystem and societies, according to a report published by World Meteorological Organization on the state of climate in Asia. Why is it happening? Let's ask the expert over here. We're very lucky that we've been joined by Mr. WAQAR SHERAZI, who happens to be from the disaster response, or happens to be a disaster response expert. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. WAQAR bhai, how are you?
Many thanks indeed for having me on the morning show.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Wonderful to have
like
you over here.
And like my co-host mentioned, that Asia is warming up twice as fast as compared to other global places. So why is this happening? And since we have entered into the era of global warming, I would say we have not entered into it. It has been self-inflicted by us humans upon us. So why is Asia more susceptible to this vulnerable change?
Well, before that, I think we should also understand the severity of the problem.
True.
The Asia temperature is rising double than the global average. And it has been quoted that the global average temperature increase of sea surface has been recorded on 0.13, which has been recorded for Asia and Pacific, like Pacific Ocean and Indian Ocean, for 0.2 degrees centigrade, which is about double the global average. Whereas the average surface temperature increase on land is 1.04 degrees centigrade, which is again double than the global average. It means a lot. It means that the patterns of rain would be changing, the droughts and the unanticipated climate events would be increasing in Asia. Why this is happening? This is happening basically primarily because of the greenhouse gas emissions in Asia and in the globe generally. What are the greenhouse gases? The greenhouse gases are the gases which are responsible for life on Earth. Why? Because they retain the temperature inside them, and this is the reason that life on Earth has nurtured. But now, because of the human intervention, these greenhouse gas emissions have been drastically increased, considerably increased. And it has been said that the carbon dioxide particle per million count was highest in last 800,000 years on the globe. That was 420 particles per million molecules. So not only the carbon dioxide, but the methane and the nitrous oxide as well, which are also the greenhouse gases. So the greenhouse gases are reason for the temperature increase, which is the global warming.
WAQAR bhai got the point now. And now I think that, you know, what has happened now. You know, now let's come towards what do you think Asia needs to do collectively? Where do you think that all the countries need to kind of come, sit down together and be like, hey, you know what, we need to reduce these gases, please, let's move on towards that. आज असल में वक्त की थोड़ी सी कमी है माज़रत के साथ.
The reduced fossil fuel consumption is the key to achieve the massive reduction in greenhouse gas emission.
Okay.
So the fossil fuel we use in vehicles, in industries, and in many of the things, you understand.
So we need to go eco-friendly.
Eco-friendly. And then for the long term, we'll have to control the population, because each person has a carbon footprint. So reducing the population means a long-term and a sustainable solution to the global warming itself and to the greenhouse gases emission as well.
And you know, there are many misconceptions among people that global warming or climate change means that we're just going to have hotter summers. But I think it's integral for you to explain to everyone that how they can cause droughts, floods, and agriculture changes in food sources
and
as
colder,
well.
colder
And extreme cold
I
weather
think
as
winters
well.
as well.
It was reported by the report that the report we are discussing, that the April of 2024 was the wettest April ever in Asia and specifically in Pakistan. Why? It reflects the overall weather pattern change. It means that the unanticipated weathers cause harms to the agriculture products and agriculture itself, which means that the food security of this region would be compromised. Not only the weather, but it also affects the water availability.
True.
And then it affects in the long run the economic situation, because it drastically affects the food security situation in Pakistan and in the region. So it is a knitted chain, and every link affects the other link of the chain.
Exactly. Thank you so much, WAQAR sir, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you, and thank you so much for shedding light on such an important topic where we do see how Asia, ladies and gentlemen, is becoming more warmer, above average, I think twice above average than the rest of the world as well. And according to WAQAR sir, it's because of the greenhouse gas emissions, and the world really needs to come to this and probably bring the attention where how we need to reduce it, be more eco-friendly.
And you know, I actually have a question for Shahzad. How often do you use ChatGPT?
I mean, only if I need it, you know,
Alright.
because otherwise I would never use it. I would want my brain to kind of behave like ChatGPT as well. But I do know how ChatGPT is actually kind of altering behaviors. I think so.
It is.
Do you think that
you think so?
ChatGPT is altering behaviors because there will be too much of dependency?
It is, it is.
It's more like
You know that,
how, you know, you're just relying on ChatGPT for everything in life.
You've actually said this very accurately, because according to a recent study conducted by scientists from MIT, using ChatGPT can actually harm an individual's thinking over time. The study was based on findings obtained after individuals were divided into groups and asked to write essays during ChatGPT, Google's search engine, and nothing. So they discovered that the subjects who used ChatGPT over a few months had the lowest brain engagement and consistently underperformed. That is actually bad news for my generation, who is completely dependent on
Exactly.
ChatGPT.
So, Eesha, that's one thing. But the other thing is that we really need to have our own indigenous artificial intelligence and GPT or large language models. How are we or Pakistan is thinking about it? What is the roadmap and the vision? We're very lucky that we've been joined by one of the most amazing gentlemen I've ever come across. At such a young, tender age, he's doing so much for Pakistan. It's Professor Dr. YASAR, AYAZ, Chairman, NCAI, NUST. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Looking dapper.
Good morning and good to see you.
Likewise, thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here.
Thank you.
The future of AI in Pakistan, vision and roadmap, please.
Thank you. So, you know, like artificial intelligence is, you could say, the biggest technology around in the world right now. At various surveys, for example, there's a survey by Medium that says that 72% of the world's chief innovation officers of the world top tech companies are actually striving to make AI as their mainstream product.
Okay.
And if you look at the compound annual growth rate and the recent estimates going up, one of the major things that has happened is that previous estimate of 15.4 trillion US dollars contribution to GDP has been revised by the International Data Corporation (IDC) to 19.9 trillion US dollars GDP
How much
contribution
pie
by
are
the
we
year
bringing
2030.
back home?
inshallah. So, you know, we are making a lot of products, and the first thing is that indigenous deployment of proof of deployment of the project is necessary in Pakistan.
True.
And also some of it gets deployed abroad as well. So, recently one of the major news is that, you know, we have managed to get one of the software across to a Japanese company, and they had, you know, contracted us for that, and this is basically for frailty assessment. What this software has contributed is that, you know, the old persons, when they used to go for this therapy in Japan, you know that it has an aging population, and the test used to take around 4 hours for one person, with a lot of doctors engaged. And with our AI software, we have been able to bring it down, the estimates for what exercise is needed and what sort of treatment is needed, we've been able to bring it down to 1 hour and with less human engagement. So, you know, this is increasing the comfort for the old persons as well, because to take the test for 4 hours was difficult for them too. Yeah, and they have to do like in Pakistan also, I think we need to bring this kind of activities in. In any country in which technology has become mainstream, you see, for example, smart cars or self-driving cars in the US, when they've made it mainstream, first they have used it in the US. They've done legislation, deployed it in the US. Once it gets successful there, then it gets deployment.
Only with technology, you know, because with medicine, I think it's being tested on us or developing countries.
And you know, speaking of this point, how soon can we see AI being integrated in Pakistan's healthcare, disaster relief, and agriculture and economic side?
I think the development of AI algorithms, several algorithms have been developed. For example, at NCAI, we have a flagship initiative called the Digital Human Project.
Okay.
Digital Human Project has, you know, integrated AI software for all sorts of healthcare industry, like starting from, let's say, brain tumor detection, segmentation, life expectancy prediction, whether it's malignant or benign, assessment for that. Also neurological disorders, first I'm covering the brain, then you come down, you know, fundus images, retina scans, prediction of eye diseases or other diseases using eyes, for example, using the retina scans. So that, and also then if you come to pulmonology, you come to cardiology, we've got ECGs in it, we've got, you know, tuberculosis, asthma, COPD, all of these in COVID-19 based prediction, and with accuracies going up to 98.6%.
Wow, that's very positive.
Yeah, exactly. And also for like with one of the major centers, when we interacted with them, they asked us that, you know, they need a software for spinal cord, detecting, for example, any pressure, for example, point where because of which spinal cord pain is there, or if there is any deformity in the spine. So we made a software for that. Also for medical teaching, we've made a dedicated software in which, you know, even if we want to, again, coming to the initial point that you're referring to, let's say if we want to train the humans to be able to think better, and we want to use AI as a tool for that. So what we do is that, you know, radiographs are shown to medical students, and they can look at it and they give their assessment about, you know, what sort of disease it is, and AI at the other end is working and gives them their assessment.
Basically,
so they
AI is more behaving like a teacher now.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But sir, very quickly, because I think today what we're doing is we're talking about, you know, all of these projects are amazing. Thank you so much for being at the forefront of it, but it's still a very private initiative. Now imagine that Japan came down to Pakistan and was like, hey, you know what, can you provide us with a solution? You provided them with a solution.
Yeah.
How is Pakistan government doing on that front? And have you reached out to government? What are they, you know, what are their thoughts on this? And do you think that they, in days to come, probably will see, probably just with, you know, even traffic in Pakistan?
Indeed.
Do you think that the government is out there and be like, hey, you know what, provide us with solutions?
Most certainly, and in some places it already has. For example, in the Lahore Safe City project, the underlying AI solution which detects cars, which picks up its number plates and which, you know, looks at the faces and everything, is developed by our center. It's a local solution, and it is superior to, you know, most other solutions you will find around the world.
Wonderful.
I'll tell you a couple of features which are unique in this, and you can check it. Even in China, other places, you won't find the solutions. For instance, in our local solution, which has been deployed in Pakistan and services available, you know, to Pakistani society, of course, to issue them challans, and the police is the one which is the beneficiary for that. But and for regulating traffic as well, of course.
Yeah.
But the features, for instance, are that, you know, in a regular, you know, system, for example, with edge-based, you know, AI-based computation, when a face is detected or a car is detected in one camera, once the car appears in another camera, you still check it for security as well.
Okay.
Whether the number plate is fine or not, because every camera is behaving independently.
Yeah.
But in an interlinked system, you are able to check, for example, that if one image is being tested at one place and it is expected to appear in another area, at least you don't do the security check again. So the number of computations go down.
Wow.
For developing countries like us, we don't want to be doing computations more and more and more, you know, and for this reason, this is a more cost-effective solution. Also, you can divide the city into areas. Like for example, one day when there's a match in Qaddafi Stadium, you can say that that's the, you know, red hot area where every face and every car needs full checking.
Yeah.
But in some other areas, you can make a sampling algorithm in which you can say that we want to check today, you know, this kind of persons, or first filter can be that, you know, first we filter out certain faces, or we filter out cars with certain shapes, for example, or certain models, if we're looking for a suspicious or stolen car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you
And
so
this
much
would
for
make
saying that.
life
But
so much more easier.
yeah, towards the end of the day, करनी उन्होंने तलाशी अपनी मर्जी से लेनी है. तुसी side पे हो जाओ,
But the
तुसी
feature
लग
is
जाओ.
available.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things, for example, I think NHA, जिससे हमारी बात हो रही थी, and they, you know, brought us a concern to us that, you know, many times you issue a challan and people don't come to pay it. So we, you know, offered them a solution that you can actually put a camera on a picket, and whenever some car comes there and they haven't paid their challan, at least they'll be able to
Sir,
catch
don't
them.
do it, don't
That's
do
a
it.
great solution.
Because I do know how these smart city cameras have been taking pictures and sending those pictures or challans to their, or posting them on their addresses, and how a lot of divorces have taken place because people were with somebody else. So I don't think that's a great idea. Probably we'll have to work around it.
So,
One last question,
for
sir.
the record, we don't implement
I know.
how it's,
But,
you know,
but it
yeah.
did happen initially, and then, you know, obviously, you know, officials decided that that's not a great idea. But sir, very quickly, one last question. That is that I was hosting this event for TDAP and REAP, Rice Export Association of Pakistan. They were very happy that we had exported $4 billion worth of rice. And while I was checking that, okay, we need to kind of be on the front of IT, it was at around 3.2 or 3.8 billion dollars only. Very quickly, where are we in terms of exports?
For checking the quality of rice, for segregating that, we have a dedicated software. It has been covered in media and everything as well. We've offered it to a number of rice companies, and you know, like the solutions are there if they want to use it.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Great
much,
to
sir,
hear
for being
such
with us.
positive
Lovely to be in
news.
conversation with you. For everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Look after. Allah Hafiz.